Hi.
How are ya?
Here we are.
I've been watching all the Jeffree Star. Go ahead.
Hello and welcome to Dark Alignment.
Hi.
I am Brittney.
And I'm Amy.
And we are a true crime astrology podcast.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to our spooky, scary, creepy Halloween episode. Please notice our fantastic decorations.
We decorated and dressed up.
We did. We gave effort.
We put effort into our theme. I really have been liking these themed episodes, so we'll probably keep coming up with more themes.
There's literally nothing I like more than a theme. So I'm living my best life right now. And we've got some great cool shit on the table, including this.
Why don't you give them a tour? Because she has some interesting things here.
So we have our voodoo doll, which is actually, I made this doll when I was 8 years old. And her name is Marianne, and I took her dress off and thought maybe she could be scary. So, yay.
Did you make her, when you made her, were you thinking of anyone?
I just wanted to make a doll because I saw it on like a cartoon or some shit.
So she probably doesn't embody anyone's.
No, because she has red hair.
A connection to anyone's spirit.
No, she's connected to my spirit. Okay. And my grandma helped me make her. So shout out Mama, who definitely does not listen to this podcast.
No.
I don't think she'd like all the swear words that I use. But we also have this fancy fucking OJ glove, so that's some good shit.
OJ glove.
We've got some
voodoo doll.
Yes, fake gourds, real gourds.
Yep.
This pumpkin situation, and these are my fancy bathtub lights. So you're welcome.
And then we have a cedar smudge stick today. We're doing cedar now.
And we have a spider.
Oh yeah, and the spider.
We've got a spider. So that's the tour.
Kind of hard to see the spider. We got a spider.
Yes. Okay. That is the tour of our set today. Because I'm sure you noticed the difference. But this is our 8th episode, which is crazy that you guys have been coming back and that we've been doing this. Last time we discussed the party monster, King of the Club Kids, Michael Alec. And then this week we've got a really heavy hitter for you guys, specifically for Halloween. So if you are watching any scary, spooky movies to get in the mood,
you gotta watch a scary movie. It's gonna be cold.
It's gonna be cold, and you're gonna need a scary movie. And actually, 3 popular cult classics were based on the crimes of the gentleman we are about to discuss. We are going to be talking about Ed Gein.
Yay, Ed Gein.
So, no, we're
not
like,
cheering.
No, I mean, he sucks. We're not cheering for him. So, Ed Gein is an American serial killer whose crimes were so disturbing, they did inspire some classics you may remember. Psycho. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So Leatherface was based on Ed Gein. And then also Silence of the Lambs, the character Buffalo Bob who made the skin suit, totally based on Ed Gein. Because he fucking did that shit. And so cause some of his nicknames, because they all have nicknames, it seems. He was known as the Butcher of Plainfield and the Plainfield Ghoul. Are you scared?
I haven't heard the word ghoul in a really long time. Like probably since like some kind of Scooby-Doo cartoon.
That's really true. The ghouls and the goblins.
I don't think I've actually heard. Yeah.
I don't think anybody. We're bringing it back. We're bringing ghoul back this season. So there you go. Also, didn't say this before, but please, if you're tuning in, give us a like and subscribe.
If you're still here.
If we didn't scare you.
Hit like. You can subscribe and you can hit the bell so you know when we have an episode up, or you could follow us on Instagram and we post about it on there
at Dark Alignment on Instagram.
And if you really like us, you can support us on Patreon, and that means a lot to us.
That would mean everything to us. And thank you to our Patreon supporters. You guys make it happen, make it possible for us to keep doing the show. And
absolutely,
we are still looking to expand to other platforms, still figuring out the kinks of that, but I guess without further ado, let's trigger warning it up.
Oh, yeah.
So, trigger warning, you've been warned. This is a really disturbing story. Some fucked up shit goes down. So, I hope you're here for it. Let's party.
Yes.
So we are going to introduce Mr. Edward Theodore Gein.
Ooh.
He was born August 27th, 1906.
And we have a time at 11:30 p.m.
Oh, wow. That's good stuff. Almost the witching hour. I like it when they're born in the witching hour. And he was born in Plainfield, Wisconsin. So the only things I know about Wisconsin are cheese and serial killers, because they've got some of the...
Apparently it's a bad place.
I don't know that it's a bad place, but it's a place that's had a lot of serial killers that have done some fucked up shit. So not sure about that. So Ed Gein as a child. Let's talk about little Eddie.
Little Ed.
Little Eddie. He loves his mama. Like, hardcore loves his mom. Augusta Gein, his cuntastic mother, was the apple of his eye literally his entire life, even after she passed away. So he also had a brother named Henry and a shitty alcoholic father named George. And he couldn't hold a job, and mommy totally hated him for it. So there's a nice family dynamic happening. His dad actually owned a grocery store for a little while, and then eventually sold it and moved the family to an isolated farm that Ed remained at for the rest of his free life.
Okay.
Free life. Not all of his days, but until he went to prison. So... Augusta was like super overprotective of both of her sons and didn't want anyone influencing them. So the isolation farm was her fucking jam. Like, that was all she could ever want. She constantly told the boys that the outside world was scary and dangerous. So she's like brainwashing them. And that all women were devilish, who were skanks, except for her, of course. She was the only pure one.
I was gonna say.
No, everybody but me. Like... The rest of them...
I cannot imagine. Okay.
And you have a little boy.
I'm just, yeah.
Can you imagine telling him that shit? That's...
Well, because we've been considering homeschool, you know? And then some people will homeschool for the purpose of isolation, so they can, you know, keep them away from the ideas of the world around them. That is not my purpose for it.
Right.
So you just get a lot of questions like, what if they're not socialized enough, you know? And I'm like, trust me, he'll be socialized. He'll be doing lots of things.
He's fantastic. Also.
Isolation, no.
Yeah. So in addition to telling her sons that women were like terrible except her, she also really loved reading the Old Testament to them, which is like fun times, good stuff, fire, brimstone, we're all going to hell. And she preferred the verses about death and murder because that's what kids need to know.
Oh, wow.
Why wouldn't you?
Wow.
I mean, if you're going to pick a verse, pick the good ones. And on the subject of homeschooling, this is, I think, the second most shocking fact about Ed Gein is that he was not homeschooled.
Oh, so he
went to public schools.
Not entirely isolated.
Yes. So he did actually go to school, and he wasn't like creepy Bible homeschooled
So
like you would expect.
He's getting this two conflicting worlds.
Yeah, well, kind of, because he was really awkward and shy and didn't have friends, and he was really strange. He had these like weird mannerisms, and it was like really socially off-putting. So people were not like trying to be his friend and hang out with him. He kind of repelled the other kids. One of the things that they say he did, like, he would just burst into this weird laughter out of nowhere. So he'd be just, no one's talking to him, and he's just like, nah! And it was like he was laughing at his own personal inside jokes. And I'm sure they were hilarious, but nobody else knew about them. So it was fucking weird. And whenever he did try to make friends, his mom actually punished him for it. So... even though he was, like, socially fucked, he was a really good student and made good grades, and he enjoyed reading. So, he was pretty intelligent, which is interesting.
Okay.
So this next section, that's the childhood covered. Next section is called Creepy Adult Life and Oedipus Complex Forever. So at this point, his dad finally drinks himself to death, and Ed is 34 years old at this time. Daddy was the provider. So now Ed and Henry are supposed to provide for their mom. So they start doing like random odd jobs around town. And they, like, people liked the brothers. Like,
Yeah.
people thought they were nice guys. Ed was actually a top choice babysitter.
Oh.
No.
Ooh.
So Ed actually seemed to relate more to kids than adults. It was just like, oh, well, I don't fucking like it. I don't care.
No,
I
don't love that.
No, don't like that shit. So then his brother Henry meets a divorcee and really wants to get serious with her, which pissed off that mom so fucking hardcore. I mean, an unmarried, a divorced woman? Excuse me? Like, no.
That would be a whole thing.
So during that time, like, the conflict between Henry and Augusta
Mm-hmm.
strained the relationship between Henry and Ed. Because Ed loved his mom so much. So, like, the two start getting weird. And anytime that Henry, like, says anything negative about Augusta, Ed is just, like, super butthurt. He can't handle it. He, like, kind of loses his shit.
Ooh.
So, now let's talk about something else really weird. On May 16th, 1944, Henry and Ed were, like, burning some stuff on the property, and the fire gets out of control. So, it's kind of like a wildfire situation. It draws attention from, passersby, and the local fire department comes and puts out the fire. So, by the end of the day, fire is out. Everybody's gone. There's smoldering shit on the ground. And Ed reports his brother missing.
No.
So a search party goes out with lanterns and flashlights, and everybody's like looking for Henry. And then his dead body is found lying face down. And apparently he had been dead for quite a while.
Wow.
Which is interesting. They concluded that it was heart failure, since there was nothing like... He hadn't been shot or burned or injured from what anybody could tell, but it was later reported that Henry had bruises on his head. Still, police, like, totally dismissed any option of foul play.
How?
It's 1944, so this is kind of...
Oh, my God.
It's a very different time, so I attribute a lot of it to that. This is like Black Dahlia times. This is like...
Okay.
it's in that same era.
Yeah.
Police work was, I mean, I don't see any gunshot wounds here, so it looks like everything's gonna be fine. I think this probably died of natural causes.
I like the voice.
I don't know where that voice came from. I love doing voices. I don't know what that one was.
That makes sense. You like, you like karaoke. I could see the voices being,
I love karaoke. Let's get it straight.
So, my bad.
Like is not strong enough
for
my feelings for karaoke. Seriously, I have a whole karaoke system in my house.
Yeah, I think every time I've been to her house, almost.
It's let's do karaoke because that's what we do here. It's a good time. Y'all should come.
It actually is. It is. I haven't enjoyed karaoke more aside from your house. Except this one time at a bar. I did Look at Me Now, and there were girls that got up and started dancing around me, so that might be
Girl, I would have been twerking all over that floor.
Okay.
I would.
I totally got you off track. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I enjoyed it. So, no foul play. They officially listed the death as asphyxiation, and that's kind of interesting. Because they couldn't prove choking on fire or I don't know. I don't know how they came to that conclusion.
Don't love that conclusion.
And the authorities were just pretty chill with the accident theory, and no official investigation was ever done, and an autopsy was not performed. So some people suspected that Ed Gein killed his brother, and me fucking too.
Yeah, that's where my mind went.
But of course, no one can prove it, so that's, and the way our system works, if you can't prove it, it didn't happen. Hello, OJ. What? So now, guess what?
What?
It's just Mommy and me. That's Ed and Mommy just
thank goodness.
In the farmhouse alone together, just what he's always wanted. He had Mom all to himself at last, which makes me want to sing At Last, but I won't. So then, shortly after Henry's death, Augusta has a stroke that's pretty devastating. It's kind of there's some paralysis involved, And Ed just devotes himself to taking care of her, of course, because he's super devoted to his mom. And Augusta was still, like, even though she was sick and frail, was real crazy about women and thought they were all, like, stupid skanks and talked about it a lot. And she loved to call them harlots and whores. It's her favorite topic.
It sounds like she would have been great to have a conversation with.
She sounds like fun.
Just so lovely.
She would hate the world today so much. Like, she would just, all those hooers. She would hate it. Hooers. So that's probably, I mean, she was pretty obsessed with it, which may be why she had a second stroke. And then she, like, super deteriorated. Because in December of 1945, December 29th to be exact, so a little bit after Christmas, Augusta passes away at the age of 67. Okay. And Ed is now, like, super devastated. He lost his best friend, his weird mom wife. He was, like, completely alone in the world because at this point he's 39 and single, and his whole family is dead. His mom, his dad, his brother. And 39? Like, seriously? I'm 32.
Yeah.
To think, like, that's pretty young to have lost literally your entire family.
Yeah.
So this next section is called Ed is Unsupervised. So he got to keep the farm, and he still earned money from odd jobs, and he made a shrine to Mommy in the house.
Man.
He boarded up the rooms that she used, including the upstairs and downstairs parlor and the living room, and he left them totally untouched, while the rest of the house became a living fucking hell of hoarder nastiness. And his mom's room was just, like, super pristine. And in the photo gallery that I included in our pictures,
yes,
there are pictures of Mommy's area and the rest of the house.
I just Googled her to get her sign, like at least her sun sign. I got a interesting picture that came up.
Oh, I'm sorry if you're seeing some fucked up shit.
No, it's okay. It's just funny.
No, you gotta stay in the photo gallery. Don't look at pictures
outside
the photo gallery.
I'm not in the photo gallery. I'm sorry.
I strategically pulled only photos that I thought were, like, not the worst ones. I looked at some
Googled her name.
You can't Google her name. How many times do I have to tell you?
I just Googled boobs. What?
I'm trying to look at boobs. Actually, if you Google Ed Gein and boobs, you're not.
I'm not going to.
You're not going to be happy with the results.
Do that.
I did not include those photos because they made me feel weird.
I think at a different time in my life, I could look at it, but not right now.
I looked at every single photo that was under the sun, and it was pretty horrifying. So
you just can't unsee some
No,
things.
I've been...
So, yeah, be a warning for everyone out there.
Trigger warning. Be careful, like, Googling any of these pictures. We are going to share some of the ones of the house and Mom's area and the rest of the house, just kind of the comparison, because it's pretty wild. Like, I had an image in my head of what that would have looked like, the contrast between how clean Mom's area was and, like, what the rest of the house looked like, and I was not prepared. You know, it's like you think you can imagine it, but you can't.
No.
So Ed lived in a small room next to the kitchen, and around this time, he became pretty interested in reading some, like, different magazines with adventure stories, and he really loved the ones that involved cannibals and Nazi stuff. So that's interesting. He had some special interests, and he found magazines to cater to those interests. Of course, look at the time frame.
Yeah.
It's in the 40s. There's lots of Nazi things happening. But Ed was overall like a handyman. And he occasionally worked for a local road crew and did some, like, crop threshing. And sometime between 1946 and 1956, he also sold a big chunk of land that was his brother's. Oh. So he's, like, kind of finding ways to keep himself making that money. And then in my notes I wrote, OMG, he is the original Eddie Money. I'm stupid. I think I wrote that last night at like 1 a.m. So now, here we are. The big triggers are here, bitch. Like, we're about to do... Shit Got Weird is the name of this category, because brace yourselves, y'all. On the morning of November 16th, 1957, Plainfield hardware store owner Bernice Warden disappeared. a Plainfield resident reported that the hardware store's truck had been driven out from the rear of the building around 9:30 a.m. and the hardware store was closed the entire day. And some area residents believe that was because it was deer hunting season. Like, it was common, let's close everything down, I'm gonna be gone. Right. I put a sign up, like, back tomorrow or whatever. You know how that shit works. But Bernice's son was actually the deputy sheriff. And when he entered the store around 5 p.m. to find the cash register open and bloodstains on the floor, he, knew something was up. And he told investigators that Ed Gein had been in the store the evening before his mother's disappearance. Mm-hmm. And he actually told people, that he was going to come back the next morning for a gallon of antifreeze. So, of course, there was a sales slip for the gallon of antifreeze. Right. And it was the last thing written by Bernice. So it was, laying by the cash register. So he kind of left a paper trail of all that. Right. And now she's gone. So on that same day, later that night, Ed was arrested at a grocery store. Okay. Because he was their prime suspect. That's the way they did shit back then, too. They didn't really need much they could just fucking arrest you. Yeah. Now they cannot do that. That is not how our system works. Luckily, that's not how our system works. Because there's a lot of wrongful convictions, and if they could just go around arresting people without evidence. I mean, there was a little bit of evidence in this, but not enough. They have to question you first. But anyway, blah. They decide to go out and search Ed's farm. And they were not fucking prepared for what they found. Because upon arrival, they discovered Bernice's decapitated body in Ed's shed. Whoa. I saw the picture of this. This is the one I can't unsee. She was hung upside down by her legs with a crossbar at her ankles and ropes at her wrist, and her torso was dressed out like a deer. So she was cut. Dang. She was cut completely from. Wow. Yeah. It was. But she was likely decapitated first, right? Or not sure. We don't know what she lived through. We don't. Okay. We don't know what she lived through. She had also been shot with a .22 caliber rifle. Oh, nope. Here we go. Mutilations were made after her death. I did notate that. I couldn't remember. So, I mean, not cool. It's not cool, but
cooler than being alive for it.
Yeah, the thought of that whole thing after actually seeing the pictures and seeing oh god, it was a lot. I can never unsee it. Today, every time I would blink, I'd be like, there it is. Like, no, don't look that picture up. No, anyway. This is the part that's really, really fucked up because this is just a whole paragraph that's a list of what the authorities found when they searched the house. Okay. Nobody could have prepared themselves for this, and even reading the list, it's hard to imagine actually seeing this. So, they found whole human bones and fragments, a trash can made of human skin covering several chair seats, a nice little cushion. Skulls on his bedposts, female skulls just kind of laying around. Some of them had the tops sawn off, so they were made into a bowl or a goblet. So interesting. This is one of the pictures that I chose not to include in our stuff because it was really disturbing. He had a corset made from a female torso, and it was skinned all the way from the shoulders to the waist. Whoa. So the breasts are fully intact. Wow. Really disturbing.
All of the attention to detail.
And yeah, though it's pristine. It's perfectly a woman's figure. Leggings made from human skin. I could not find a picture of those. I was really interested to see those, and I couldn't find those.
It's hard to picture that.
Yeah. I that was one that I was I need something to go on here. I could not find a picture of that. Masks made from the skin of female heads, which saw all of those. This one was one of the worst. Another one of his victims was named Mary Hogan, and her face, her skull was in a box, and then he had her face mask in a paper bag. Wow. It's really disturbing. Bernice's entire head was in a burlap sack, which I also saw that picture. And he had her heart in a plastic bag, by the stove. This is one of the weirdest ones. There were 9 vulvas in a shoebox.
Like, oh.
Vulva.
My head went to Volvo the vehicle.
No, we're talking...
That's not what you hear every day.
We're talking a vaginal region cut out. So that's 9 female organs. Yeah. So that was really fucked up. Also, a young girl's dress and a belt made from female nipples, which there's a picture of that in the photo gallery.
I've seen that.
It's in the photo gallery, and I was pretty impressed with the clasp and like how it was one of those. It was just like, what am I
craftsmanship?
What am I looking at? Like it's horrifying, and then when you really think, yeah, please burn some cedar.
Here we go.
He had 4 noses, just like random noses, cut off and hanging out. A pair of lips on a window shade drawstring. So like where the spider is,
right?
A pair of lips to like. That's a weird. That's the attention to detail is insane.
It is.
And then we're not even done. A lampshade made from the skin of a human face, which these pictures are horrific. Because you're thinking, like, he's turning this on as a working lamp, and these faces are illuminated. Like, it's super fucked up. He had fingernails from female fingers, and that's the whole list. All of the articles were photographed by the state crime lab, and then they were destroyed. So...
Dang. I think they didn't want to...
a lot of me is like, I'm glad they destroyed it, because... That's putting victims on display, and it's really degrading, and at the same time it's like, that's so fascinating, and I don't know what else they I don't even know. Hard. I wouldn't want people to like think that's a collector's item, and like you know how people do. Okay, so deep breath. That was some heavy shit. We're not out of the woods yet though, because now we're going to talk about some graveyard shit. So now they have Ed at the station, and they're questioning him. And he told the investigators that between 1947 and 1952, he made as many as 40 visits to 3 local graveyards to exhume recently buried bodies. And he claimed that he was in a daze-like state. So that was the thing with Ed Gein, is that he wasn't killing. He did kill people. He did actually murder a few women. But most of these body parts came from people's loved ones who were recently buried.
Wow. And
the ground was still soft. Like, he would go...
Wow.
When it was easy to dig up. And on about 30 of those visits, Ed claims that he came out of the daze when he was in the cemetery and left with no bodies. So he's saying, like, it was almost like he was saying he was hypnotized and would just like
he was trying not to.
And and sometimes I left empty-handed. I didn't even bring home a prize. Like, what the fuck, dude? And then on other occasions, he actually dug up the graves, and he was looking for, specifically, women in their middle-aged time of life that resembled his mother. So if they resembled Mommy Augusta, he took their bodies home, tanned their skins, and made his DIY household wares and other things, the paraphernalia. He made some shit. He admitted to stealing from 9 graves at local cemeteries and led investigators to those locations. So the state crime lab participated in opening 3 test graves, just because it's like they kind of thought he was full of shit.
Right. Like, it's hard to believe.
This is like beyond comprehension. Even though they had just seen like all that fucked up shit in his house, it's still like, is this guy...
Are we sure?
Serious?
Are we...
So they, wanted to test those graves, and they were exhumed, and then authorities just like... Another thing was they couldn't believe that he could single-handedly dig up a grave. That's a lot of labor. But he was apparently pretty fucking motivated, because he totally did. And just as he described, the exhumed graves were found empty. One of them actually had a crowbar in there in place of the body. Another one was empty. And then one... Let's see. Sorry, I lost my place. most of the body was gone from the third grave. So it wasn't totally gone. He got parts of the body, which is really interesting.
Okay.
And another weird thing he did is, like, he returned some of the rings and the body parts, like, back to the grave after the fact. Mm-hmm. So there was no denying that he had done this. Like, he was not kidding. So now, this next section is called Ed Gives You the Hot Goss. So soon after his mother's death, Ed began to create a woman suit so that he could become his mother, and this is a direct quote, to literally crawl into her skin. Let that sink in. So he denied having sex with any of the bodies he exhumed, because it was, like, often thought that he was a necrophiliac, and he claims that he was not. And his reasoning, are you ready for the reason why?
Why?
Yeah, they smelled too bad.
Mm-hmm.
But you're, like, cutting them up and turning them into household items, but I don't know. Fuck that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm glad that he didn't do that to any of the victims.
Yeah.
Or at least he says he didn't. We don't actually know.
Yeah.
But, like, otherwise he would have been down. You know, if the smell would have been better. That's what it means to me. Whatever.
Maybe if he had some incense to burn, like a Glade plug-in.
Glade plug-ins. Febreze wasn't invented. Jesus, that's horrible. So, yeah. During interrogation, he also admitted to the shooting of Mary Hogan, a tavern owner who'd been missing since 1954. And that was one of the heads found in the house that we talked about. And he denied any memory of, like, the details of her death. But
he's in some kind of zone, according to him.
Yeah.
When he does these things.
And, you know, like, once all this came to light, people started coming forward with, like, their weird Ed stories. One of those stories came from a 16-year-old kid whose parents were, like, friends with Ed. Mm-hmm. They attended ball games together and, like, went to movies with him. And this kid said that Ed had shrunken heads in his house. So that's a weird tidbit that he was just... I mean, a 16-year-old's like, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
A 16-year-old boy I can see being like, oh, yeah.
Because you think it's like, obviously, they didn't make them. Like, if you did. Like, you see that in museums.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And he totally thought it was fine because Ed described them as relics from the Philippines. Yeah. Sent by a cousin who had served in the islands during World War II. It's totally chill.
And it's totally fine. I wouldn't want that in my house anyway,
right? But he had a story to pass it off, and it's just kind of like weird shit like that the townspeople are
like
kind of...
people already heard some weird things.
They knew there was riffraff afoot. No one was like totally shocked. I mean, they were shocked by the crimes, but not that like Ed was capable of the crimes. Yeah. If you know what I mean. So they let's see. Oh, the shrunken heads were actually determined to be the masks that he had, like the face masks. Mm-hmm. And he was considered a suspect in several other unsolved cases. And including the disappearance of a babysitter named Evelyn Hartley. Yeah. So during questioning, the sheriff gets like super fucking pissed at Ed because Ed's like telling him all these things that he did. Mm-hmm. And the police officer actually assaults him and bangs his head and face into a brick wall. Wow. Which is kind of like, I mean, calm the fuck down, but also... Way to go, Dick. Oh but the problem with that is it made his confession inadmissible in court. Wow. So that was actually not good. I'm sure like we all wanted to beat his head into a brick wall, but that sheriff actually died of heart failure at the age of 43 just before Ed's trial. And people who knew him said that he was just completely traumatized by hearing Ed's crimes and being a part of this investigation. Oh, yeah. So, like, along with the fear of having to testify and relive it and talk about assaulting Ed Gein. So, like, that stress fucked him up. And now, we're wrapping it up here. This section is called Bye. On November 21st, 1957.
That's the day after my birthday.
Oh my God, everything seems to be happening around my birthday. Finally,
my birthday comes up.
Amy's getting her time to shine with her birthday. I love it. That makes me happy. Also, thank goodness it's another Pisces situation.
And he's not a Pisces.
He's not a Pisces.
He's not a Pisces.
I actually don't know what his sign is.
You'll find out.
I don't remember
You'll
his birthday.
find out if you keep listening.
Keep listening. I don't remember his birthday. So, he was arraigned on one count of first-degree murder. And he pled not guilty by reason of insanity.
Okay.
He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but he was found mentally incompetent and could not be there at the trial. That was their determination. But doctors disagreed. So, sorry, bro.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure he had some issues, though.
And that's the thing.
I just don't know.
NGBRI defense is really, like, it's still a tough one to prove. Like, you almost have to be to a point where you cannot assist in your defense at all. Like, where you can't offer mitigating evidence, where you can't say, well, I had a terrible childhood. Like, it's really when you have to
be so far gone, right?
Yes.
Like, where you couldn't control
you have
your
to be
actions.
to a point where you can't assist in your own defense.
Okay.
And that's kind of the main piece of NGBRI defense. So that's interesting. Didn't mean to go off on a tangent there.
I didn't know a lot about it. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of qualifiers, and schizophrenia is not one of them, because many people with schizophrenia function regularly in society.
Absolutely.
It is not a split personality disorder like a lot of people think.
People talk about it like very inaccurately.
It's one of the most stigmatized mental illnesses that there is. So that's something, like, please do some research on schizophrenia, because it's really fascinating. Most people with schizophrenia are not violent and can function very well in society.
Very true.
So just want to say my piece on that, as I'm glad you did. I usually go off on a mental health tangent, and this is no exception. So, the trial began on November 7th, 1968, and lasted a whole week. So that was like almost 10 years before the trial, which is kind of crazy. Or over 10 years, almost 11 years from the time he was arraigned to the time that his trial took place. So that's interesting. And at the request of the...
long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we have the right to a speedy trial. So, hooray. So the trial lasted a week. And at the request of the defense, his trial was held without a jury, which is smart. That means you're leaving it up to the judge.
Oh, yeah.
When you're leaving it to a jury, and a jury is seeing the fucking pictures of the bodies that you turned into masks and, like, fucking corsets and shit, no. Like, that jury is going to fucking fry you. No. So it is in his best interest.
Also, just how the jury is chosen. I've been on a jury, and if that had turned into my day, like,
yeah, so I think it was the best decision for everybody, like, also not traumatizing that jury by having to, like, look at those photos and everything. So he was still found guilty, as expected. So he spent the rest of his life in a mental hospital. And the judge later said that due to prohibitive costs, that Gein was tried for only one murder. Like, that's why. The cost of it would have been, too much for the courts to handle at that point. But Ed died at the age of 77 due to respiratory failure, and he died in the hospital, and he also had a secondary lung cancer happening. And then over the years, this is kind of just fun facts, souvenir seekers chipped pieces away from his gravestone, which I included this in the photo gallery. So there's pictures. Yes. So first they defaced it, and then people started taking pieces of it until the stone itself was completely stolen back in 2000.
Wow.
It was recovered in June of 2001 near Seattle. It was placed into storage at the sheriff's office in Wisconsin. And now the gravesite is unmarked. But that does not stop people from coming to visit. It's not unknown.
And
so,
if it's the only,
he's also buried right between Mommy and his brother Henry.
So it'd be obvious,
So what happened to all this shit?
I'm curious. Oh, that's a good question.
So this is actually, I thought this was one of the most entertaining facts about just the aftermath of the crimes.
Mm-hmm.
So the truck he hauled the bodies in was sold to a sideshow carnival.
Okay.
Where you could pay 25 cents to see it.
Yeah. I know there's places that have... There's also, like, a doctor's truck that you can see at some other, like, oddity, haunted kind of place. And you can see, like, you can go in the truck or go around the truck and see where this
I wonder which doctor it was.
It was, like, Mercy Kills, I think. He killed
okay. The Angel of Death situation. Yeah. I hate those stories. They piss me off. Anyway,
go ahead.
That's a whole other tangent. I'm gonna calm down.
Apparently, a lot of those places buy those vehicles. Like, it's a big
like a tourist attraction, and it's kind of like a cult following or whatever. I'm not gonna lie, I would fucking pay to see it. Damn it, I'm part of the problem. Okay. Anyway, so that's what happened to the truck. But what about the farm? Mm-hmm. So the house.
Okay. Yeah, the property.
So in today's money. I did my homework. It was worth about $41,000. All
right.
And so someone purchased it, and then it mysteriously burned down.
Whoa.
So arson was suspected but never proven.
Right.
And that is the end of the
all of the
story.
All of the creations.
Those were already destroyed.
Oh, okay.
Those had already been taken by the crime lab and photographed and destroyed, which is how we have the amazing photos in there. And then so it was almost like somebody bought the farm just to fucking burn it down, which whoever did that shit, hell yeah. Burn down that horror house.
It doesn't need to be in existence.
Nope, because it would be like a museum tourist thing, you know, where there's nothing wrong with that, and I would totally go to it.
There's nothing you could do with it at this point.
Yeah. So that's Ed Gein, you guys. Are you ready to see his chart? Because I really am. I saw the messiness of it before we started recording
a second ago.
But of course, I don't know what the hell any of it means.
It's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of little things I'll be able to talk about.
Sweet!
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Woo!
Alright, so Mr. Ed Gein's chart. I feel like I don't want to say Mr. He doesn't deserve Mr.
No, he's just...
We need a more demeaning pronoun.
They like to call him Creepy Old Ed.
Creepy Old Ed's chart. Here we go.
Or we can just call him Creepy Creeperton.
Creepy.
That's fine, too.
That sounds like a cartoon character.
No, he is not a cartoon character. No. That's a fucked up cartoon. Don't let your kids watch that. Oh my. Actually, all cartoons are pretty fucked up.
I think all of them to an extent, probably.
No, we tried to watch, like, old Looney Tunes, like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And seriously, like, there was a whole episode where there was nothing but guns. And even there was one part where guns were just, like, flying through the air and, like, shooting people. We were like, what is this?
I realized, looking back, that a lot of the stuff I watched had a lot of guns in it. But it just wasn't a concern for anyone really at the time.
But why was it not a concern?
It's funny. And then the other day, Coda said something like, oh, like, shoot you dead. Like, he was joking. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. No.
Shoot you dead.
Like, where did you... No.
In the sweetest voice in the world. He has the sweetest
voice. He thought it was a funny joke. He was, like, waiting for me to laugh. And I'm like, nope, we're not going to do that.
Sorry, that's not hilarious. You're not funny with that.
That was just such a thing back then.
It really was. Anyway.
Not anymore. All right. So, back to Ed.
Yeah.
Creepy Ed.
Creepy Ed.
So Ed was born in, I don't remember how to say this the right way.
Oh, so
LaCrosse. I think LaCrosse.
Is it LaCroix? Was he born in LaCroix?
It's like LaCrosse.
Sure.
I'm sure it's not. Wisconsin. On August 27th, 1906 at 11:30 p.m. So if you have the birthday, comment below.
Yeah, if that's your birthday.
You can find your killer twin.
Oh my gosh, because mine is John Wayne Gacy. He was born the day after me. So
I bet we could find somebody born the same day.
Somebody's probably got the same day.
Anyway.
But does that make him, I'm guessing, is it a Leo or a Libra?
Oh, you skipped one.
Shit.
You skipped one in between there.
Ah, dang it.
Virgo.
Ah!
So,
okay.
Yep, you just forgot about Virgo for a hot second.
That's really interesting.
I think it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, his sun is in Virgo, in the 4th house, which is, actually I'll get to that in a second. So Virgo solar energy. I have a little blurb on these today.
Ooh.
It thrives in health initiatives. They kind of focus on being of service a lot of times, or they like routine. They spend time paying extra attention to detail, organizing the areas of their lives that are indicated in their house placement of their sun, which is the 4th. House of Cancer, the mother, the home, caring,
shut up!
passing emotions. This is a lot of like choppy waters kind of feelings area. So like all of that Virgo energy is funneled into his home and mother and all of that. So that's like the light of his life. That's like where the sun has illuminated his life. That is a big part of his life.
Wow.
Also the Chariot, if you're into tarot, everything is more emotional in this house, but less emotional in his actual sun energy placement of Virgo. Because Virgo is intuitive, but it's more like grounded. It's an earth sign. So it's interesting how like when Virgo focuses on something, it's not an emotional thing. So, like, if you were working on a project, and you have a lot of Virgo energy in your chart, you probably aren't getting all emotional about it as you're doing it. Like, Virgo is really good at, like, they're really comfortable doing their chores, you know? They're really comfortable doing their routine. Like, it's not so much of, like, a emotional battle or trying to stay focused like this other people will experience.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So, yeah, I could see him with this Virgo energy being so detailed and organizing and these tedious tasks of creating things, this craftsman for his house, kind of related to his mother issues. We're seeing this already just by his sun sign.
That's crazy. We haven't even scratched the surface.
No, and then, oh my gosh. And then him kind of having this colder, like more grounded, like, feeling about it, like attitude towards it. Like he's not, like something that should be emotional, but he's not approaching it in an emotional way.
Okay. Yeah.
Like he's
just like
he's able to do the tasks,
going about his business and just getting the job done.
Right. Like, he wants to make this thing. He's gonna go do the step by step, check it off.
I mean, you gotta go to the graveyard. Step 1. You gotta put it.
That's Virgo. Very Okay. It's just the way he ended up using that energy, isn't it?
That's insane. Wow.
Yeah. So then moving on to his moon. And your moon placement can also show your relationship to your mother. So keep that in mind with this. His moon is in Sagittarius.
Okay.
In the house of Virgo, 6th. So more Virgo energy is kind of put onto his moon. Because he's... Anyway. But Sagittarius is not like Virgo. It's a very free-flowing kind of sign, right? It's kind of lucky. It's lucky, adventurous, free-spirited, expansive. More, like, actually pretty intelligent, spiritual kind of energy. This lunar Sagittarius frequency seeks security by always moving, always growing, always self-improving, always sort of not taking life too seriously in another way. Like, if your moon is in Sagittarius, like, your emotions, you're kind of just you have this boundless, emotional, adventurous kind of mindset, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think of, like, happy-go-lucky, like, kind of
just... It's interesting, and, like, they can really, like, the adventurous idea, like, maybe you're not physically, like, going on adventures, but it's also about going on mental adventures and going on emotional adventures. So if your moon is here, you might also really get into studying a certain subject or like really taking it to the next level. This can also show, if you have a lot of Sagittarius or 9th house in your chart, it can also show a lot of like an interest in higher education, because you wanting to really take it to the next level. Like, where can we go with this? What more can we learn? You know, you want to like really feel this area out. Kind of like how Pisces will want an escape in that way.
It's all I want.
Sagittarius isn't necessarily doing it for an escape. They're just excited by the process of learning all of this stuff. So
nice. It just always makes me think of Brittney Spears, because she is a Sagittarius and she loves to read. And that's one of her favorite.
It's one of her things.
Yes, like, and she's not doing it for any reason except she just loves it and loves to, like, kind of do that sort of thing. It's so, I can't think of Sagittarius without thinking of her. So, yeah. I mean, I think
like having very like elaborate hobbies would be a Sagittarius thing, because they're just so excited by like doing, like, learning or going places, or it's by pure excitement is the point of it.
I like it.
And you can kind of assume with the Virgo house where he directed this energy back in the same thing as his sun sign that I was mentioning earlier, and 6th house is, it's like that tedious Virgo stuff. Again, I'm trying not to repeat the same words I just said.
He was so disciplined.
Oh my god. Well, that would be more of like a Capricorn Saturn. I think of discipline is a good word for like Capricorn Saturn.
Okay.
Anyway, I misspelled a word. I had to fix it.
Oh, I mean,
we're talking about Virgo.
Nobody else is going to see it, but you should totally fix it.
Okay, so his moon sign, like I was saying, can also relate to the mother. And so as Sagittarius, being his moon, and by looking at the aspects on his chart, which I'm not even going to get into today, like usually I really focus on the aspects, but he has so much going on. Like it would be a very long episode if I went through all of this.
And we haven't been timing ourselves, so it may already be
we're
long.
really just going at it. I'm going to keep my eye on the clock in the corner of my...
Cool.
Anyway, I think she really taught him to find pride in this, like, mercurial, inner wisdom, kind of logical, practical side. And maybe she showed some of that too in herself. She really discouraged him from any kind of marriage. There's a square to Juno. There's a challenge from the mother and mother energy to wanting a partner to be committed to.
So, weird tidbit. I was wondering, do you think that Ed Gein was a virgin?
I don't know, but what do you think he could have been doing with the bodies, though? Like,
that's
is there
the thing,
any?
because he says he did nothing.
But would that count if he had? There's so many questions I have. I was also asking, like, would he talk to the bodies as he walks around his house? Like,
he totally talked to the bodies. He had to have. 100%.
Like the Basques. Like, walk by, hey, man.
I feel like he put them on, like, they on the furniture to, like, have friends around or something.
It's a connection. It's a human connection in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird one, and it's not a cool one, but whatever.
Anyway.
But I wondered if he is a virgin.
And then I wonder about the mother. Because would the mother have put her beliefs on him so much that she would have become, like, a partner in that way? You know what I mean? Like, do you think that there could have been any sexual undertones to that relationship?
Oh, well, I absolutely think there were undertones, because I feel like he was in love with her, and that he was so devoted to her that maybe that was misplaced in, like,
I would wonder if anything happened there ever.
Some incest.
Anyway.
Speculation. We are speculating AF, but I like thinking about this whole...
There's a lot to think about and question. I have a lot of questions, like...
And you've got a lot of answers, because this is fantastic. I love it. Okay, sorry.
All right. And let's see what else. And she really ended up, she was his main source of, like, love and appreciation, for sure. And really moved him forward in, like, what he was going to be known for later, his reputation. So she... It just works out, like, how she encouraged him, it's just, and how she challenged him.
Viewers.
Man, there's a lot there. Then, what was next? What was I going to say? Okay. Now, his mother, since we're mentioning her, I looked up her, like, basic chart. I don't have a lot of her information, but she's a Cancer sun. And an Aries moon. And like I've mentioned before, the Aries moons can be more aggressive emotionally, and really pushy, and can get physical, or more likely to get physical when they're highly emotional, or create like a physicality. It's one of the most common moon signs for people who do commit murder and things like that.
Okay.
So,
interesting.
Like serial killers, a lot of like that. It's higher percentages for those who have Aries moons. So that's just an interesting thing to keep note of. And then her Cancer sun sign is right where Ed's Jupiter and Neptune are. And Jupiter will show an expansion of the energy wherever it is. So there's more evidence of her personality really influencing his life and having a big effect on his life. And a lot of people really like people who have a strong placement where their Jupiter is. Did I say that where it makes sense? Like
people favor those.
Yeah, people usually favor. Well, no, because
that's okay.
Okay, so if Ed's Jupiter is in Cancer, so he was more likely to like people who have a lot of Cancer in their chart.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
There we go.
Okay.
So he probably, that's just more him liking his mom, and her being a huge part of his life and part of his self growth and all of that. What he evolves into. And really probably caring for him. But the Neptune being there, it's a lot of dreamy world delusion kind of thing.
He talked about delusions.
So his mother would be the source of a lot of those delusions. Just again. And then his mother and him, their life paths, their North Node and South Node, are opposite each other.
Okay.
My mom and I have this actually too.
Really?
Where my mom and I, our North and South Nodes are flipped. Like, it's just, it means like it's a very karmic connection with that person. So like,
okay.
Like you are destined, like there's a big piece of your destiny in like each other. Like, if that makes sense. I'm not reading it well.
No, I feel like I know what you mean.
Like you have to, it's like a big part of your life path, to be around this person.
Okay.
In some way.
They're significant.
Yeah, they're very significant.
You're significant
on
to each
your
other.
life path.
It's mutual. Okay.
Exactly.
It's a symbiotic relationship.
Symbiotic.
I know, gross. Sorry.
So getting into the life paths. Let's see. So his South Node is in Aquarius. Okay. Conjunct Chiron in retrograde. So how many times have we seen Chiron involved with these people's past in some way?
Yeah.
A lot of times on this podcast so far. And that's his emotional trauma and his wounds and his vulnerabilities, and really how he reflects on them and his past. It's all tied to his past. Okay. And as we know about his past,
Ed.
Mm-hmm. So him, the idea with your North Node and South Node is that you want to find the best things about your South Node and use those as tools to help you move forward into your life path in your North Node. With this, it makes that really, really challenging for him. Because he would really have to find, in order for him to have done this, he would have to, in a healthy way, he would have to have healed from the past trauma and moved on with his life. So this probably for him would have involved therapy and, a lot of things that he either didn't have access to or wasn't going to do.
Yeah, I don't know what therapy was like back then, too. We're talking the 40s and 50s.
How would that have even...
lobotomy, Like,
exactly.
I don't think that mental health was not
I don't
really
think he would have had access to the type of help he needed. Right. And no. So, or maybe some kind of circumstance in his life could have somehow helped him. I don't know. But he would have had to get over this trauma in order to have a good experience on his life path. So, and this being an Aquarius, it really shows him being an outsider, him kind of being an oddball, quirky, kind of
he was all those things.
Really thinking about the bigger picture, like society. And I could see that with his mother, like putting focus on like societies and like how they're wrong or bad or whatever. But you're really thinking like kind of colder feeling, kind of big picture thinking, You're thinking about how you relate to your peers, how, like, group dynamics, and he's thinking about all that stuff. Man. And then his North Node would be opposite that.
Okay.
So that puts it in Leo.
Ha! I don't see him as a Leo.
It's his North Node.
Anything about him Leo, so this is...
Yeah, but he would have anything in Leo.
Any of the Leo
his chart is actually very spread out. So
really?
He has a lot of all the energies, really. So yeah, his North Node being in Leo, it's Mars and Mercury. So this is him moving into this Leo-y space. Leo-y space, the third house. He's thinking more about smaller groups of people. So as he goes through his life, he's probably being more isolated, like pulling away from society more. It's not total isolation, or we would probably see more of like a 12th house placement here, but this is like this is pulling away or wanting smaller groups of people at the very least. Okay. And he's really thinking about the practical uses. He's getting more. It's a very witty kind of placement. It's action oriented. His future. I
like the air quotes.
It's hard to explain with some a little bit. But we've had a lot of Mars interactions with people who end up being physical with their, like, delusions and things like that. Oh. And a lot of, like, it really puts him at more and more likely to act on the trauma from his past in a physical way and in a very mental, practical, planning kind of way. Okay. Because Mercury rules, like, Gemini, you think like, active thought, like, really quick thinking, kind of like a planner, like they're a lot of common sense, like smart, and then that Mars energy is that fire and the passion and that like physicality and then Leo is really wanting to express, right? Like Leo is all that expression. He's stemming from trauma and this odd outsider kind of energy to expressing that in a physical and mental way. Like, does that make sense?
I mean, he definitely expressed his inner fantasies, if you will, because he literally talked about dressing up in these outfits and pretending to be his mom. Like, so he was having these fantasies, and he was clearly acting them out, and there was a creative aspect. Yeah. I mean, it's horrible, but
and there's a creative energy with Leo. Yeah, and the tediousness of Virgo, and then he's really most comfortable in his home. So like
he was his true self.
And then when you see how his life ended, you can really see that small community kind of situation throughout, just following his life path. Yeah. I mean, when you're in a mental institution, you're not isolated, but you're around small groups of people. You're kind of in a little community. And
that's a very selective.
How that manifested in his life, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Let's see, what else did I have here? Oh, yeah, and then his South Node being in his 10th house. Or, let's see. In his 9th house, it became like like I was saying earlier, if you have a lot of stuff what you have in your 9th house is like what you feel excited about and what you feel like you want to adventure and take further. It's all based on his trauma from his past. Wow. So it's really like
he's taken his trauma to the next level.
That's what he decided to do in his life path. That's totally what he decided to do. Okay.
It's so crazy how like the chart is always spot on with their life, like every time.
Man, and I see that his Lilith is really going to put him in more of an isolating situation. It's where that energy where you're really self-empowering and you're manipulating situations into your favor, and you're really finding this. It's kind of like this inner power, It's kind of sometimes it's seen as dark, but it's really just kind of like taboo, I think. So, Excuse me. So this is him in Gemini in his 12th house, and so it's causing him in more of an isolated situation. It's based in delusions and like this dreamy world of intuition, and for him it was really diluted. And it's right next to Ceres, which is all about your foundation for love and nurturing and what you would get from your mother.
No.
So it's for that, those energies for him are very tied together, and they're square his sun sign. So for him to say that when he was taking these actions, he felt like he wasn't like present exactly. Like that's kind of, that's one of the areas you can see this on his chart, is where like the light of his life, like his personality and who he really felt good about being, did not, like, there was a disconnect or a challenge there between when he would act on this like inner power and really wanting to manipulate the situations and make these things happen for himself, carry it out, because part of him would reject it, I think.
Yeah, because he said that like he went to the graveyard like 40 times, and 30 of those 40 times
I didn't do it every time.
He left without his prizes that he wanted. Oh, God.
So there's a conflicting feeling. Yeah. And there's a lot of conflicting feelings on his chart, and I won't go through all of them. But that's one that I thought would be, like, interesting.
And it's very, because he even admits that exact thing.
Right.
Like, that he felt like he didn't want to be. It sounds like he didn't want to be doing it, but he was doing it and he couldn't help it. And it's like, but he wanted to do it, but not really. But I thought it was like he would come to and be like, "What am I doing?
Right?
I can't fucking do this. Why am I doing this?"
I gotta be brain for a second. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm pregnant. Okay.
I have no excuse. This is who I am as a person, and it's awful. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
All right. There's 2 more things I'll go through real quick.
Woo!
All right. Now his ascendant. I didn't go through mention his ascendant yet. Your ascendant is your first house placement. His is in Gemini. So this would, in general, it kind of makes you more about communication and thinking. It's like it's how you come off to people. So you might come off in a more intellectual way. A lot of these people come off as more of a social butterfly, but he has so much other stuff going on.
He's far from a social
but very
butterfly,
witty, smart. He was seen as smart.
Very smart.
Very good at
people liked him
communicating. Yeah, and they mean exactly.
He was a likable person, but he was just kind of weird. That's how people described him.
Yeah, I mean, he's got both energies going on. It's just so he might have viewed other people as too broad thinking, less able to speak their minds. Like he feels the need to be the communicator for whatever. Usually it's about like being the communicator for everyone around you, but for him I feel like it's kind of interesting because his first planet, which is one of your ruling planets when you look at a chart, is Pluto, and this really sets a weird undertone to the Gemini ascendant. Because Pluto is, kind of, it's one of the rulers of Scorpio. It's a little bit eerie, like more of a biting, ruthless energy. But it's sensitive at the same time, and like based in intuition and psychicness and like the darker depths of your subconscious. It's intense, and it's about power. It's about the transformations of life and death. Like a lot about so just having that mixed in with the Gemini is very interesting.
It makes me think of his relationship with his brother.
Really?
Because like when I hear all of that, that's what I immediately thought of, because he was communicating his mother's wishes to his brother and was extremely passionate about it. Like, how dare you?
Right.
How dare you want to date this divorcee? You know what mom thinks about it. And then when his brother disagreed, it sent him on a fucking tailspin. And he got aggressive and violent and like angry. He was sensitive and passionate about this thing and communicating that message. So like all of that to me ties into his relationship with his brother.
Right.
Just uh-oh.
We're very sensitive over here.
We're sensitive to knocking things off the table. I'm so clumsy. But, Yeah, that's how I don't know, when you said all of those things, it immediately made me think of that relationship.
It's like all of this fast, bright, like Gemini energy, but like tied into this dark, depthy, like intense Pluto energy, and it's very like, oh, it's a lot.
Ed, you're so complicated, bro.
You're a complicated man.
Why you got it? Wait, no, I'm not gonna say it.
No. He also has Jupiter in his first house, and that's like more about his mom, like I mentioned earlier, and then also just like expansion of himself and his identity. His vertex is the other thing I wanted to mention real quick, and it is in Scorpio.
Okay.
This is kind of where life throws you, so he's more prone to be in situations that involve scorpionic things like death, rebirth, transformation, the darker undertones of life, like the occult, like like the what's the word, like reading between the lines kind of stuff, like psychic ability, what was I gonna say? Also, like sensuality and sexuality would be in this area, but we don't obviously know.
Yeah, we don't. That's what I want to know. If I could ask Ed Gein a question, it would be like,
did you ever have sex?
Did you ever lose that V card?
Oh
What's going on? I'm just super genuinely curious because, I mean, unless it was to his mom, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
super gross and weird, but anyway.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll never know, but it's interesting.
Like sometimes I can kind of like get an idea from a chart, but it's like it's such a weird situation. I have no idea.
Right.
A weird chart too.
Yeah.
Everyone's chart's weird, but
his is just. It's interesting that he's in like so many different energies and different signs. Like that's really fascinating.
Oh yeah, and then his Libra space is interesting too. Libra is like can be really into like aesthetics and making their environment nice, and it's not all about Libra, but that's some of about Libra, and really wanting to make things look nice. And he has Venus there and his Pholus there. So Pholus is like where you really go overboard in an area. You know, you really like overdo it a little bit. And then Venus like is what rules Libra. And that's more of like really wanting this aesthetic, nice, pleasant environment and life.
His definition of pleasant aesthetic.
Yeah, it really the taste is always unique to the person.
Okay, yes.
But yeah, the fact that he wanted to make it like nice, like in his area, like with his creations.
It's crazy because he was like a hoarder. Because I showed you the pictures.
Yeah, but that's how he liked it, I guess.
And then he put all the craftsmanship into the skin lamps and hand gloves.
Really physically expressing that.
So interesting. Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah. And he felt good doing that. That was something his Lilith placement liked.
Oh no. That's terrible.
Well, I will leave it there.
Okay.
He had a very interesting chart. Again, he was a Virgo sun, a Sagittarius moon, and a Gemini rising.
That's quite a combo. Well, you guys, that is Ed Gein. That is episode 8. Our spooky Halloween episode. I think that we definitely talked about some scary shit.
Got some creepy content in for today.
So next time you watch Silence of the Lambs, I want you to think of the person who inspired a horrifying character, and kind of see the movie in a different way. Because Happy Halloween. I will think
of it differently.
Happy, okay, how do you say it? Samhain
or Samhain or
that's okay.
But it's really like Samhain.
Oh, see, I can't.
It's an interesting word. All the other Sabbats are easier to say. Well, that's probably not true.
Well, happy
Lunasa
that.
looks funny.
Whatever you celebrate.
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead.
Is also around now.
Is it around now? Again, I thought
You mixed that one up.
I mixed it up. I think it's in May, and that's Cinco de Mayo. I knew it's not.
She knows it's not Cinco de Mayo, but she still thinks they're both in May.
I feel like they should both happen. May is a big month.
It can't happen in May. It makes no energetic sense to me for that to be in May.
No, I'm very confused, and I've talked about that multiple times, which is silly.
It's funny.
But thank you guys for being here, for supporting us, and supporting our beautiful brain baby that is this podcast. We love doing it. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So please like, subscribe, follow, check us out on Instagram. You can follow us individually too. Mm-hmm. I am at Britt_Oakley if you're into pictures of my super cute dog. Lots of poll videos, lots of mental health advocacy and body positive stuff. And then Amy.
Yeah, and I'm Eruca Rose on Instagram. And I do daily astrology most of the time. And I do a lot of other astro information over runes and a lot of witchy type of topics.
And just like gorgeous photos. Like you're so good at photography.
I like the aesthetics of Instagram for sure. Yeah. Every now and then you'll get a yoga or a pole dance picture, but not so much lately with the baby.
There's a baby coming, and hopefully it's gonna be a Pisces.
Either Pisces or Aries. Vote below.
Vote below. Vote. You know it's the right choice. No, there is no right choice.
I might do a poll later on my Instagram just to see who guesses. Like, see if people guess it right.
Or like, just what are you feeling? What vibes? Yeah. I'm feeling Pisces vibes because that's what I always feel because I'm so in my element.
Also, the gender. That'll be a surprise too.
Okay, so you don't know the gender.
You got lots of polls. We got lots of guessing people can do.
Oh my gosh. I'm also going to participate. So come interact with us. Let us know what you think. Leave us a comment. We're always happy to get feedback. But yay. Thank you guys. We're going to be back soon with another super creepy episode. We're on a theme. So we've got a theme coming up for the harvest season. So prepare yourselves. And stay amazing. Stay awesome. Love yourselves. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.